What's up, fight fans? Mainman Mademan here. Y'all know how I get down. We talking boxing, man. What up to the fam? And what up to everyone in Mainman Mademan's boxing form? Hey, look, man, the thing is this. I caught up with a recent interview from Terence Crawford, and I'm listening to some words coming away from Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford is running around saying now that Errol Spence Jr. is not a duck, everybody. He is not a duck. And so I know a lot of the boxing fans had to be a little surprised to hear Terence Crawford come out with that position. Well, I mean, we remember the build-up and we remember how things were going. And that during the time of the build-up, given the on-again, off-again negotiations, this fight happening, that fight happening, a lot of folks charged Errol Spence Jr., especially Crawford fans, charged Errol Spence Jr. with being a duck during that time. I think both things can be honestly true. I think during the time of the build-up to this thing, you know, all of that was going on at the time. I think that at the time, yeah, you wanted to call him a duck, sure. But we actually have the fight. He actually stood fast, stood on his word, and he took the fight, everybody. So at the current moment, you cannot call him a duck. But all of the shenanigans that we've seen in the past, and even Terence Crawford himself has came out and said certain things, during that time, it was appropriate. Now we got the fight, it's time to push on. And I think a lot of people are starting to get to the point of saying, look, man, it was never Errol Spence Jr. that didn't really want to fight. I know that my position and in the position of the channel has been for quite some time now, it's been Errol Spence Jr.'s team that didn't want to fight. And, you know, a lot of people may look at that and say, yo, why wouldn't they want to fight? It's a big money fight. Look at what it's doing in the sport of boxing. Well, I'll give the reasons real soon, fight fans. But there was a many reasons. And I think that, honestly, Premier Boxing Champions was afraid to lose something as opposed to maybe take the gamble. And, yeah, they may make some good money and the show may do good or it may not do good. But I think that when you're talking about business like to go for the guaranteed money that they know that they're going to make. And maybe they had some reserves about that. Not to mention, once again, if Terence Crawford is victorious, they lose a lot. I tend to believe that it was not Errol Spence. Errol Spence Jr., he did what he did, but he actually has a market and everything to protect. And I think it was his team, fight fans. Real spill. And I'm going to give every reason right here. Okay, so first things first. The first thing is the reason that PBC never really wanted to get next to Bud Crawford. Let's call it what it is, fight fans. Bud Crawford being a free agent. Bud Crawford's future is uncertain with it if he is the winner. I mean, it's no telling that if he will come back to Premier Boxing Champions or not. We know that Terence Crawford is obligated to come back for the rematch, but if he's successful in both of these contests, fight fans, then guess what? He remains a free agent, taking a whole lot of treasure away from Premier Boxing Champions. We're talking about all of the belts, the lineal belt, you know what I'm saying? And we all know that these belts are used for fighters for their marketability. Well, how is Premier Boxing Champions going to market any of their welterweights without a belt? Well, I mean, that's the thing, you know what I'm saying? Dealing with Terence Crawford, making this fight, he takes that away from Errol Spence Jr. PBC is now left to wonder what to do next. Their star has been, you know, should I say their star has been exposed. They don't have no belts to go after. And on top of that, Terence Crawford is a free agent, so he's not obligated to go there. He can go to any promoter. He will be able to go to any broadcaster and take everything that he's won in these fights with him. And that's got to frighten Premier Boxing Champions. Real spill. So that's the first reason why I believe that they did not want to deal with Terence Bud Crawford. I mean, it's not a case like if they would have did Earl and Keith. Like if Keith would have beat Earl, then they still would have had total control of that situation. Maybe if Jerome Boots Ennis would have got involved, they still would have had total control of that situation, no matter who won, lost, or draw. You feel me? So it's like one of them type things. In Terence Crawford's case, they got no control, fight fans. How you feel like they like? How do you think they like that? Another reason I believe is that everything that went in to build Errol Spence Jr., his marketability. He comes from a humongous state in Texas, we all know. We all know that he stands next to the Dallas Cowboys. We know that Premier Boxing Champions invested a lot into Earl by putting him on regular television right after the Olympics, absorbing a whole lot of eyeballs. We know about the story between Errol Spence Jr. and Floyd Mayweather and their sparring thing, which a lot of fans are maybe not believing nowadays, given that when Shane Mosley came out talking about Spence and Crawford sparred, Well, it turns out the camps have denied that, and this never happened. So boxing fans are left wondering now, did Floyd and Earl, the black eye story, or did that ever actually happen? But that's not here nor there. My thing is, that particular story or moment in time or whatever you want to call it, this helped build Errol Spence Jr., having the name Floyd Mayweather behind him. And, this helped, man. And you got to think of all of that they've built over the years to build Errol Spence Jr., even luring Mikey Garcia, not because Mikey Garcia was some perennial name and so on and so forth, because Mikey Garcia had a following. And everyone, they was allowing Errol Spence Jr. to capitalize off that following, even lining up Errol Spence Jr. for a fight with Manny Pacquiao. These were all efforts to build Errol Spence Jr. to the household name that he's trying to be today. And all of that effort, all of that work to build this guy, only to see him get to Terence Crawford and wipe out everything that they've built, especially before they got a chance to put Errol Spence in a fight, say with like a Canelo or something like that. Well, I mean, does Premier Boxing Champions really want to risk that? I mean, you're risking an entire market. There's very few markets like Texas. You're risking the market, not to mention him standing next to the Dallas Cowboys fight fans. Think about it. The relationship that PBC had with Fox when Fox was working with the NFL, all of these things will help promoting Errol Spence Jr. And so what happens? I mean, that's a lot of heavy lifting, if you might want to call it. But what happens? I mean, they built this dude up to this right here, only to see this wrecking ball named Terence Crawford come through and just smash all of that. I mean, how marketable is Errol Spence Jr. after a defeat to Terence Crawford? Now, you may say, well, man, he's going to win. But it's still a gamble. And is Premier Boxing Champions, well, they wasn't too happy to take this gamble because it can go left, especially a Errol Spence Jr. being inactive and coming off of a car accident. It's a risky gamble for Premier Boxing Champions. So all of these things right here that they've used over the years to build them, will they see it wiped out on July the 29th? But this was also another reason why I believe that they never wanted the Terence Crawford fight. Now, for another reason, just like we just finished talking about the market, well, this allowed Errol Spence Jr. to grow into a modern day pay-per-view attraction. I get it, fight fans. He's not doing 1 million pay-per-view buys, granted. But in today's pay-per-view market, Errol Spence Jr. is a big deal because the market is what the market is. And so over time, fights with Mikey Garcia and everything that PBC have done over time have allowed them to start to capitalize off that market. They started putting Errol Spence Jr. on pay-per-view, and he's one of their top pay-per-view sellers. Between him, Gervonta Davis, and Deontay Wilder, those are perhaps their biggest ticket sellers and pay-per-view attractions right there. And so Earl has been made into that. Now, would they want to gamble and trade that in for what Terence Crawford does on pay-per-view? Remember, Terence Crawford's numbers are not that stellar on pay-per-view. And so Terence Crawford coming into this situation, possibly threatening to wipe out a pay-per-view attraction of PBC, well, they're thinking of their bottom line in that case. This seems to me, in that case, they would be more protective of their bottom line. Granted, look, it's a gamble, fight fans. You may say, yo, Earl's going to win. You might feel that way as a Spence fan. But in PBC's case, where they are suits and they're looking at numbers and bottom lines, well, this is risky. They are going to make some good money off of this fight. And I think the pay-per-view numbers, as well as the attendance numbers, are going to do very, very well. But this is just one fight. In Errol Spence's case, they can march him forward and continue to put him on pay-per-view against other guys that they feel like he would have won against and continue to make money. If he gets halted and stopped in his tracks by Terence Crawford, how much money in the future can they really make off Earl? I mean, losing to Terence Crawford, would that take, say, a Canelo fight off the table or any other big name that Errol Spence Jr. may look forward to at higher weight classes? Or will it? You just got to ask yourself that, fight fans. What will this do to his pay-per-view numbers? Did they want to risk losing a pay-per-view star, fight fans? And I just think that they've always had their hang-ups on that. It's a risk. It's a gamble. One that I don't think that PBC was honestly happy to take, especially not having no control over the winner if Terence Crawford wins. So that's another reason, man. This is a pay-per-view attraction, and he can get wiped out and wrecked. And last but not least, fight fans, I don't think that PBC really wanted to deal with Crawford, mainly because of the purse that Terence Crawford would command. You got to remember, fight fans, Errol Spence Jr. is making his career highest payday versus Terence Crawford, just like Shawn Porter did. But the thing is, man, is that Terence Crawford is not going to be happy fighting with the guarantees of 1 million, 1.5 million, hell, not even 2 probably. Think about it, man. He came from Top Rank in ESPN where he was guaranteed $3.5 million. And it's something I always say to the Spence fans is, how are you going to look at Terence Crawford to take less money for a harder job? You know what I'm saying? When they came around with those crap negotiations a little while ago. And so that's it. This is it, man. Bud Crawford will boss up on your ass, and he would easily go find other options. You know what I'm saying? PBC is normally their fighters just kind of fall in line. They're happy with what they're getting. They've even said it in the past how happy they were with all of the money that Al Heyman has been paying them. And now they're starting to realize that, well, maybe he wasn't paying us all that great because little old Terence Crawford from Omaha is clocking bigger checks. And on top of that, giving these fighters their biggest paydays. And so, you know, PBC would have a problem with perhaps with paying Terence Crawford the high guarantees that he would probably look to want to do. And so, I mean, in a fight like this, for example, I mean, look what Earl is getting perhaps guaranteed. So, I mean, you got to understand, man, Terence Crawford is bringing a whole nother pay scale over to PBC, something that I don't know if they would be happy to deal with. I mean, clearly we saw Bob Arum squealing, even though it was ESPN putting up the money, but Bob Arum still was squealing. Oh, I'm losing money and blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying? Imagine how PBC going to feel. You're going to have Al Heyman out here doing interviews and shit. You know what I'm saying, fight fans? I mean, because he going to be out here whining the blues. So that's what I'm saying, man. The purse that Terence Crawford commands. Well, I think it would affect him. And for that reason right there, I mean, think about it. That was one of the main reasons they stopped and paused. It's like, yo, this dude want too much money, as they say. Only to see him get not only everything that he wanted, but then some. You got the supposed A-side, Errol Spence Jr., saying that he had to flip a coin in order to figure out who was going to walk out first. Well, why wasn't that already established and understood that Earl, who is the A-side, should walk out last? I'll tell you why. Because you're dealing with Terence Crawford, straight up shrewd businessman. You feel me? And PBC would have to deal with that as well. So what that look like? Well, there you have it, fight fans. Those are the reasons that I believe that Premier Boxing Champions did not want to really get this fight to Terence Crawford. And so it is what it is. Now, good thing is we are where we are today. We're less than 2 weeks away from the fight. And I will give a lot of credit to Errol Spence Jr. as well as Terence Crawford for coming together and making this fight. One thing I will say is that I do not believe that Errol Spence Jr. felt similarly to Premier Boxing Champions. I believe that Errol definitely wants this fight for his legacy. Not to mention, you know, the things that Errol Spence Jr. was being faced with at the time when he accepted this fight. Well, you know, he was being pushed down other directions if he wouldn't have took this fight that he perhaps wouldn't have been as happy with. Fights with Jerron Boots Ennis, if he would have remained at 147, was knocking on his door. Fights with Keith Thurman, a fighter that he never really felt comfortable enough to want to fight all of these years. Given how Keith did him back in the day, he was being forced down that route, and maybe even either pushed to a position of having to abandon his belts before becoming fully undisputed and moving up to a higher weight class. Though these are all of the situations that he was facing as opposed to the Terence Crawford fight, which gives him undisputed, which gives him his biggest payday, which gives him everything that he wants. It walks him into the Hall of Fame, in my opinion. And so it's like, you know, he never really wanted those other stuff. So he did what he had to do in order to try to get this thing over the finish line. You know, getting on the phone with Terence Crawford, changing his management outfit. I mean, these things all mattered, fight fans. And, you know, I hear Errol Spence in interviews today speaking about, Terence Crawford was tough to deal with in business and he wanted so many things. Well, once again, I give credit to Terence Crawford for being a shrewd businessman, because most boxing fans did not think that he would get as much things that he got out of this fight. So it is what it is, man. But either way it goes, I think that Errol really wanted this fight. I think he was pushed into a corner and faced with situations that he did not want to have to deal with right now, as opposed to dealing with something much bigger and more meaningful than the Terence Crawford fight. Either way it goes, fight fans, I'm happy that we got the damn fight. Good stuff, man. But at the end of the day, man, PBC, y'all got dragged to the table. It is what it is. Offering Terence Crawford an original offer with no guarantee, that's just PBC trying to get over. They've never done that, fight fans. But it is what it is. Thumbs up on the way out if you didn't hit it on the way in. Share, rock the bells. Catch up with y'all real soon on the next live stream, fight fans. I'm glad we are where we are. But the story had to get set straight, man. PBC didn't want this fight. And, we got it what we got it. Hopefully everyone wins that's involved. To the next video, fam. Peace out.